Hi, cool. I talk very quickly anyway, so hopefully this will be fine. But I practiced it yesterday and it wasn't, so let's try it. So I'm representing Front End York. Tonight I am talking about how and why developers should get involved in user research, which is a topic that's very close to my heart. So introduce myself, I'm Chad. It's a picture of me in case you can't see me a meter away. My pronouns are they, them. The reason I'm doing this talk is because I am currently a user researcher based in Sheffield. I've been doing that for about a year and a bit now. But before that, I was a web developer. And so kind of mostly back end, but a bit of front end as well. My last job was at Sky in Leeds, working on their website. And so the reason I kind of wanted to do this talk was because as user researchers, we're trying to get the developers at work involved in user research, but we're not really selling it very well. And kind of as a developer, I'm like, well, actually, we can't just go, please come and do user research with us because we want you to carry our heavy stuff. And that is true, but it's not the only reason why I think anyway developers should get involved. So it's me, I'm Quotation on Twitter. Please tweet me, but only if it's praise. So what is user research? User research is a set of research techniques we've cribbed from social sciences, so kind of sociology, anthropology, psychology. So the most well-known kind of aspects of user research would be usability testing. We actually sit someone down with your service, software, what have you, and kind of someone uses it and you kind of go, oh, they didn't like that, they did like that. But actually there's kind of lots to it. So there's kind of interviews. So at the beginning of a project, when we don't know what the requirements are, we'll be kind of interviewing people who might be users of that product. Contextual inquiry, where you go into someone's workplace and annoy them by asking what they're doing every 5 minutes, to go, okay, you're going to be our users, what are you doing at the minute? What do we need to solve? What do we need to fix? What's working for you? What's not working for you? Surveys are kind of part of it, but not really. And the other thing is pop-up research. So I did some pop-up research in Leeds council offices, which is a very scary experience. Basically, you go up to people with a clipboard and go, hi, have you got 5 minutes? And they do have 5 minutes because they're in a waiting room and can't escape you. But it's this big range of techniques, and we use it at all points of the product lifecycle. So some companies think, oh, we'll just do usability testing at the end, and if they find things that are wrong with it, then... But actually, we do stuff all the way through. So it will be kind of that requirements gathering at the beginning, and then it might be if we're testing prototypes, going out and testing those with different sorts of people, and then kind of testing kind of products as they iterate through with people. So why should developers get involved? Developers are problem solvers. This chair's really annoying. Developers are problem solvers, and I know from my experience being a developer the number of times I've worked on a product or a feature where basically someone's given you the Photoshop file and told you to type it in. You know, you go like, here's the design, and you kind of go, yeah, make that, and you're like, okay. But actually, that's not the fun bit of problem solving, or I didn't find that the fun bit of problem solving. There's some technical problem solving, obviously, because you have to know what to type in, but actually solving the user's problem is really interesting. So kind of an example of this is, has anyone ever worked on that user story? I've worked on user story a lot. Like, as a user, I want to log in. Like, no user wants to log in. Like, that's never happened. No user has come out to me. Like, I've never interviewed someone who's gone, I would really love a login button right now. Because what people actually want is they want, oh, actually, I need to pay my bill. Or, oh, actually, I want to track this package. Or, oh, actually, I need to apply for something. And logging in is the solution, it's not the problem. But if you have that context by going to user research and go, actually, do they need to log in? So maybe for a bill, they do need to log in, and that's fine, and you might think about the ways you do that. If it's tracking a package, do they need to log in? Can we give people a short-lived URL that they can just click to and look at their package? If they're applying for something, why do they need to log in? Why can't we just kind of let people kind of have guest accounts and all that kind of stuff? And often as developers, you get removed from that whole conversation because a product owner basically just comes to you with a design and goes, a user wants to log in, here's the login button. So you need context and you need data in order to solve problems, and the context and the data comes from user research. It comes from actually talking to people who are going to be users of your product. We also talk to like stakeholders and stuff like that, so people who aren't users but have an investment in the product, so people who be paying for it, or the people who go, well, actually, you know, legal have said this piece of text has to be here even though no one understands it, like that whole kind of thing. It's not just users. So you need context and you need data to solve problems, and that's why you should get involved in user research. And you know what's possible. So I found that, so an example of this is I was part of a hackathon And part of that was, it was a really good hackathon because we had like the actual users there who we were going to build the apps for, which is quite unusual for hackathon. And they said, oh, we want subcategories. And I was like going, okay, cool, like we need to design how are we going to add subcategories? We have to change the database, how's that going to work? And actually when the back-end devs came over and said, we can just change the name of the categories they've got already. And they went, oh, okay. Because somewhat a product owner might have written a story that says, as a user, I want subcategories. But actually what the real thing was, as a user, these category names aren't working for me. And it was a developer who said, oh, in the back end, we can just change that really easily. So that's really useful. Oh, too fast. The other reason to get involved in user research is because you're not your users. Unless you're making a product for the person who sat next to you on the same team as you, you are not making a product for you. You're making a product for somebody else. We talk about empathy a lot. It's kind of become this meaningless buzzword. But empathy it's not a substitute for actually talking to people. You can empathize with, say, a parent who's got 3 young kids running around and they're trying to do something really important, like apply for a passport or something like that. They're trying to log into something, pay their bill, whatever. You can empathize with that and go, yeah, that must be pretty difficult. But it's not until you go to somebody's house and you see exactly how disruptive that is and you see where it's disruptive that you really understand that. And so actually, you can kind of empathize with hypothetical situations as much as you like, but it's not until you actually go to kind of see people and talk to people that you really get a good idea for what problems they're trying to solve. And a prime example of this is people with access needs. So people with disabilities use assistive technology. Can't use clicker. People who use assistive technology or have kind of other difficulties in using your software. You can make something accessible and there's lots of kind of really cool tooling and you can do a lot of manual testing. But at the end of the day, most developers aren't blind. Most developers aren't using a screen reader or most developers aren't using kind of other forms of assistive technology. You have to actually see someone using that technology to really understand if your site's accessible. There was a really good talk at NUX 2015 by someone who worked on the iPlayer and said, well, the iPlayer was technically accessible and it passed all the accessibility tests. It met the standard, tick all those boxes, but actually they had a report from someone who was blind who couldn't use it because they had a weird design pattern where you had to click on a link twice. I remember this was on the older versions of the iPlayer, you had to, if you want to look at drama, you clicked on drama and then it would show you the top 4 drama and you had to click on drama again to get all the drama, which isn't very usable, but it is accessible because that link had the right text on it. So that you don't really get a lot of that until you actually go out and talk to somebody who's in a very different situation from you. And that often involves going to people's houses because people have got multiple bits of kit, multiple different things they're going to set up. You can't really do that in a lab. So that involves going into people's houses and then you see exactly how they're going to use your service because you're in their house with them and it's a good experience. So user research will help you become a better developer, which is good. We all want to be better developers. I don't, but some of you might do. Number 1, it helps improve your communication skills. It's not often that if I have someone assisting me doing research, they don't really talk to the participant, but if you don't have a researcher at your company and you're inspired and you want to go out and do some research after this talk, you'll be talking to other people, and that's a very different way of communicating than it is talking to somebody in your team. Being able to explain a technical concept to someone who's non-technical is a skill, and it's also a really good learning technique. So things like, I used to do a code club, and that's kind of a similar thing. Like, how would you explain a variable to somebody who's never seen code before? That's very difficult. But improves those communication skills. It also works the problem-solving part of your brain. So not only do we have to go out and talk to people, we also have to kind of analyze what they said through various kind of techniques. I've been in an analysis session that took 3 days. It took a team of people 3 days. There was a lot of data. And that was the most mentally exhausting thing I've ever done in my life. It's way more mentally exhausting than anything I did as a developer. And it's a different problem-solving part of your brain. It's not just kind of how do I work through a technical problem. It's you basically fill your brain with data and hope your brain comes up with conclusions and solutions and things. And it's a completely different way of kind of problem solving. So it really helps to exercise that part of your brain and will improve you as human beings. And it also helps you to understand more about the process that happens before and after you. So when I was a developer, one good thing about the product owner saying type it in is I could always go back to the product owner. I don't mean to pick on product owners. I'm sure there are other professions who do these bad things as well. But I'd at least be able to go back and ask questions. I'll be able to go back to a designer and go, oh, okay, but when it errors, what do you want here? What do you want there? What's this supposed to be doing? When should this work? Where do you want the login button to go? And the biggest culture shock I had moving from development to user research was I was asking the same questions again. I was like, okay, so what does the user want here? What does the user want here? And then people look at you and go, that's your job. So actually getting involved with that requirement stage, that I think it's very easy as developers in certain organizations, you don't necessarily get involved in the requirements gathering stage. Getting involved in user research can help you with that. Cool, running out of time. How to help out? So first of all, if you have user researchers, note-taking, doing tech support, because we're often doing stuff over VPNs or proxies, or we're using like prototypes or test servers or whatever, and having someone who can kind of help you remember how to log into these things is really helpful. But also we do just like it if you could carry all our heavy stuff, that would be great. You can't do that, join in with analysis, or join in with some places. So we have a lab, and at a user researcher lab, we can have remote observers, so people can kind of, we basically live stream it out, so you can observe as well. Join in with analysis, like I said, it's really hard, and it's really good to have someone who wasn't at the research to go, what did they mean by that? Did they really say that? Did they really say that? What does that mean? What does that mean? And that's really cool. So join with analysis. Don't have time for that, makes perfect sense, don't want to spend 3 days looking at paper. Go to research playbacks. So in the projects I've worked in, we will do like a fortnightly playback of all the research we've done. Because the point of doing research is so that eventually developers will build things that are right. So if we do research and nobody sees it, did it really happen? So please go to playbacks. So if your user researchers or design teams are doing playbacks, go to those. Don't have time for that? Just go up and say hi to people. Go up and say hi to your designers, say hi to your researchers. That's great. So maybe you don't have user researchers, right? They're very government focused at the moment, or they're kind of in, they're kind of more prevalent in organizations that work with the public, in the public sector. So if you don't have a researcher, you should get one, because research is a skill. It's something you really have to learn. It's not as easy as it looks. Also, we often have ethical training. So I have training in how to deal with people who have access needs, how to deal with vulnerable users. Data protection's a massive thing, because we are collecting people's personal life stories in a way. And so we have ethical training to deal with that, which is really important. But you don't have a researcher, which is okay, I guess. This is what you can do instead. So there's a book called Just Enough Research, which you could have read instead of coming to this talk, but this talk is shorter than reading the book. So, but please read the book, it's very good. And that's basically, if I don't have any researchers in my team, and now I've been stuck with it, what is basically the least I can do that's still useful? So it's a very, very good book. Practice on your internal users, they really like it. Do A/B testing properly. I've definitely worked at places where we just go, oh yeah, we'll just run the A/B test until the number we want falls out. But actually, if you get into that data and start actually analyzing it and build some hypotheses and then go out and test them, user research. Go to where users are. Like I said, running out of time, we'll skip all the slides. This is what I would call the minimum viable interview. So let's say, for example, you're building an app that does the bus timetables. And you want to go, well, okay, we want to do some user research on this before we start building another app that does bus timetables. So what you would do is you would go to a bus stop and annoy people, because they're a captive audience, and you would say to them, you've got 5 minutes, can you tell me about the last time you had to check the bus timetables? So tell me about the last time you did something. And you ask 3 questions, which is, why did you need to check the bus timetables? What was the best bit about that whole experience? And what was the worst bit about that whole experience? And with those 3 questions, you actually get a lot of really good data. And it's not that hard to analyze because you have 3 questions. And it does help people think. Always go with the best bit first. If you go with the worst bit first, you'll never get people to stop. So always go with the best bit and then worst bit, which is cool. I got to the end anyway. So working through the problem. So basically, user research is talking to other human beings, which is great, because they essentially buy our software and pay our wages. Thank you, people. Developers, if you're a developer, you should get involved. If you're a designer, you should get involved. This isn't just for developers. Everyone who's not a researcher, get involved in research, or hire a researcher, or do some research anyway. Because I've got a minute, I just want to plug Sheffield in February 2020 is having a front-end conference called Front-End North. I don't have a link on my slides because I didn't think about this until this morning. But the CFP is open, so if you want to do a talk about front-end development, design, UX, community building, anything kind of super funky, Google Front-End North, put a CFP in, and that would be, put paper in, that'd be great. But thank you, you can tweet me, you can email me any questions, you can grab me at the break.